Hi, Julie.
This recording. Hi, Bill. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Really good. Really good. I'm going to start with my typical intro, and then I'm going to introduce you for those of our wonderful guests who have not yet maybe heard my introductory spiel. Okay?
You go, girl.
I'm good. All right. Let's have some fun. Welcome everybody to the webinar. This is Julie Hoffman. I am the Street Smart Diva, and we are here with an amazing topic today, all about landlording and how to be awesome in landlording, no matter what kind of a market, specifically in a more challenging market. And I have a special guest by the name of Bill Biko. And so thank you all for being here, for taking, an hour out of your Saturday and what's going on to be late August. I can't believe it's already late August. If you're here,
I didn't watch that. So let's just start it.
If you're here is
Pacific time.
If you're here, gotta mute everybody sometimes. It happens. It's not a big deal. Bill, you know how to unmute yourself. We're just gonna get started. So again, I'm the Street Smart Diva. My name is Julie Hoffman. I've been investing in real estate since 2001. Now, I've transacted over 300 deals and over $80 million in real estate. Now, during the recession, like a lot of folks, we were significantly impacted by the recession of 2008. In fact, we lost almost everything. And it sounds terrible. It sounds horrible. I know. But I actually see going through the recession as a gift, because it was actually through those times that I gained my biggest advantage that I have now, because I became extremely street smart when it came to real estate investment. I found lots of ways to not only survive in challenging times, but to thrive in any kind of an economic environment. So it really, really was a gift. Now, I just want to go over some of my favorite things when it comes to real estate investment. I love how I can drive by, see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, move into it if I need to. In fact, I'm not going to get into this story. It's probably going to be on one of the next webinars. My family moved into one of our investment properties out of necessity. We were going through some challenging times and decided to downsize, and it ended up being absolutely wonderful. And I just feel grateful to have this background. I'm probably not going to go taste one of my properties, but I like to know that I can if I want to. Even if values drop, any financing that's on a property is eventually going to be paid off. So I really like that about real estate. Eventually it's just going to cash flow. There's not going to be a lot of expenses on it. Real estate gives me a tremendous amount of freedom of time. It's extremely efficient. Most deals I do, I don't make less than $30,000 on a deal. I don't really like to look at anything unless it's making me $20,000 to $30,000. That's efficient. A lot of people have to work a lot of hours, a lot of weeks in order to make $20,000, $30,000, and it's not the same in real estate. It's extremely efficient. My favorite thing about real estate is that it's completely neutral. A lot of talk these days about gender equality and equal pay. I just saw a movie trailer about 3 African-American ladies who worked for NASA and they worked for NASA at the time of building the space shuttle to land on the moon. And obviously, this movie is being made now, 2016. They're finally getting the credit for it. Well, real estate doesn't care if you're black, white, gay, straight, man or woman, doesn't care if you've had a high school education, a college education. You're going to make the same amount of money if you do this right as any other guy or gal out there. Those are some of the things that I love about real estate. Yesterday's guest on our webinar last night was a wonderful woman by the name of Anita Berger. She talked to us about investing in mobile home parks, and she left us with tons of really wonderful nuggets of information. If you're on my email list, you already got this recording, or you got access to this recording. If you go back to my website, www.streetsmartdiva.com, actually I'll put into the link later on into the chat. I'll put into the chat the link to the flash sale that I'm going to be talking about a little bit. There's also going to be a link to this recording on that on that page as well. So just keep a lookout for things. If you haven't already joined my list, please do so, because I'm sending out tons, and thank you, Bill. I'm sending out tons and tons of really wonderful information, free content over the next 5 days. I want you to become one of my one-on-one coaching students. I'm going to be real upfront with you about that. I absolutely do. But as always, it's my primary intent for anybody who's attending these webinars that you leave with a little more, knowing a little more, or better yet, a lot more about real estate investment than when you came in. And I couldn't be more excited to introduce to you today's guest host. And he's actually a team member. He is somebody that's actually coming along with the package of this 5-day one-on-one coaching sale. And as you're going to find out in this webinar, it's not one-on-one coaching, it's 3-on-1 coaching. You're getting 3 amazing coaches from different areas in this package, and you get to spend a little bit of time with one of them. This is Bill Bico. I've known Bill since about 2003. He thinks it's 2004, but I think it's 2003. We met at a real estate investment seminar. So we began our real estate investment journey at very, very similar times. He went his direction and ended up doing a lot of landlording, obviously, doing a lot of rooming houses. He went at renovations, flips, definitely some creative stuff. He's done a lot. He's landlorded over 1,200 tenants and has just such a wealth of knowledge. And he's been working with me over the last while in my online real estate investment trainings, and it's been so much fun. And Bill, we reconnected after all this time, actually, geez, it'll be going on about a year ago now. And yeah, we've been able to do some of this really incredible stuff online. We're able to reach people literally all over the world. It's so exciting. I've got Greg. I don't know if Greg is on the call here today. I know he registered, but I don't think he's on the call. Hailing from Australia. We got people that were working in the United States, of course, all over Canada, and it's just really, really fun to be part of this. So without too much further ado, I would like to introduce to you, and I better unmute him before I get in trouble. He did it himself. Good for you, Bill. Before I get into too much trouble, it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce to you my friend and my teammate, Bill Bico. Take it away, Bill.
Hello, everybody. It is nice to see some of the familiar names there in the list. People signed on here. So I know some of you have heard from me before and others have not. So I'll just recap some of what Julie told you. I've been in the real estate business since about 2003. Went a little bit crazy, bought a lot of property pretty darn quick, and at our peak we had about 73 doors that we managed. Many of those were rooming houses, and at one point I was dealing with 53 rooms on a weekly basis of tenants, and that was only for about a decade. So that gave me a ton of experience in the landlording biz, along with all my other regular properties. And from there I've just kind of expanded on. I've got my educated landlord stuff. We've got some eviction stuff I do locally, which is where I know some of you people have found me. And now I've partnered up with Julie with a lot of this stuff going on here. So it's pretty exciting times. So what we have today, I am going to go through a little bit of thoughts about what to do during a down market. If you watch one of Julie's videos early, she was actually talking about some of the challenges, how to help you with both good and bad markets. Well, really for the good markets, you don't need that much help. It's pretty easy to deal with the good markets. You definitely need some more help with the tougher markets and the challenging markets. And I'm from Alberta right now, oil province, and it's definitely more challenging. So I've done a similar presentation to this before, and a lot of the people who went through it got some good points out of it. So without much more ado, we should probably get started on the slideshow. So Julie and I have to do some bouncing around here, Julie.
Yeah, Bill, go ahead and hijack my screen. And just everybody hold tight while we do that. I'll pause. No, I'll just keep it on here. It's fine. No worries. And so everybody knows we did practice this earlier, so it should go without a hitch.
But it is technology, so please bear with us.
Yeah, so I just approved you, but I think that means you try it. You're hijacking mine, and I think you want to share your screen.
Well, now I don't have that option anymore, Julie. I don't know what's happening.
Interesting. No way. What can we do?
See, technology is just here to make us all confused.
I'm gonna just, everybody hold tight again. Make a host. Maybe if I make you a host, that will enable you to share your screen. How about we try that?
Well, let's try that.
I'm gonna try that. I am making you a host now. Let's see what happens.
Okay. You needed to make the other Bill the host.
Oh yeah, we've got two Bills. This is Bill 2, huh?
Yeah, we're trying to make this as complicated as possible. I'm running off a couple of computers here, so.
Okay, reclaim host. That's what I gotta do. And oh, this is exciting. I love learning as I go. It's really fun. Try that. Try that, Bill. Oh, I
I think we're
see.
getting somewhere. I think we're getting somewhere.
I think we're getting somewhere. So in the meantime, everybody, just Bill, I'm just going to talk while you get that sorted out. It's totally fine.
Look at that.
Look at that. Look at that. Can everybody see? Can we get some feedback into the chat, please? Make sure that you see Bill's slideshow. It's big on my end, but it looks beautiful. It's black and blue and white, gray.
Much like I feel someday.
Yeah, I feel that way. I was on the Wibbit the other day. It's this big outdoor water park, and I am bruised. Can everybody see? If you don't mind typing into the chat, you just kind of got to either hover at the bottom of your screen or over to the right of your screen. Could I get a little feedback from anyone? Anyone? Ruby?
Looks like I can see it here.
Thank you, Ruby. Awesome. Okay, good. Thank you. I just want to be, you know how I am.
Awesome.
Okay, take it away, Bill. Take it away, Bill. This is awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to mute myself now, but you let me know if you need me to talk or anything. I am paying.
Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the challenges here. And one of the things that we need to talk about when we're in a down market is the lack of communication that goes on with a lot of our tenants. When we've had a good market and we're able to just kind of sit back and let everything just kind of play out, it's great. But as things slow down, it's really important to start communicating with your tenants a lot more. If you're not communicating, what we see happening is, in your world, you know, the 28th of the month, everything seems great. You're having a good time. You know, you're getting paid in a couple of days at the beginning of the month. And then suddenly the 30th of the month, the tenant informs you they're moving in or moving out. And you had no idea this was happening. You don't know what's going on. The other issue that pops up is the check bounces. You weren't expecting this. You thought everything was great, but you don't know that maybe the tenant was laid off, or maybe your rent is too high. And you get into a situation where you really haven't kept in touch with the tenant and you haven't been talking to them enough to know what's going on. So this is one of the challenges that we find in a down market. It really starts popping up more in a down market. Challenge number 2 is short-term solutions. And by short-term solutions, we're talking about your advertising, and you can't get tenants that come and stay with you, or during your advertising process, you find some people, but you taking a little bit longer to get everything done, and before you finished all of your diligence and screening, they've already found another place. Or you get to a point where you're turning your property into a place where you're offering free rent, you're offering all these other incentives to try and attract tenants. And what you're finding is your tenants are still turning over quickly. They're only there for a short term and then they're off. What you've done in a situation like this is you've created a short-term solution. You're a commodity and you're not creating a home. You want to really create an environment that's more like a home. If you're a commodity, people just leave on price. And that's quite often what happens with the free rent scenarios and the free TVs. People just stay, they get their TV, and then they're off to the next place. The next challenge that we run into is when we end up being reactive as landlords. This is where your tenant gives you a call, the toilet is broken, and you're busy, you've got your life, and you're not jumping on this stuff. You delay getting it fixed. You know that it's going to be expensive to get a new toilet or get a plumber over there, so you just kind of delay. You know they've got 2 toilets in the house, so it's like you just kind of push them off and push them off. Ultimately, what happens, because you're reacting to this so slow, the tenant ends up getting a little bit frustrated, and the longer it goes on, the more frustrations that build up. And the next thing you notice, they're moving. They want to get out of the property. They don't even want to deal with you anymore. And now you suddenly have to react because now you've got to get it fixed, either for the next tenants or just to appease them. And the issue is you reacted too late. Another challenge we run into is when we're oblivious. And this happens far too often. I see this with a lot of landlords when things are going really, really, really well. They just kind of sit back. They've raised their rents multiple times. They're enjoying this huge cash flow to their property because things are going so well. Money is flowing. You think you're doing so well. You're smart about how you're running your business. You can't stop talking about how great all this landlord stuff is. And you miss out that things have changed. And as we're talking in our market right now, this is where your tenant suddenly informs you they found a place for $600 less per month. And it's not uncommon for this to happen if people aren't paying attention, if they're oblivious to what's going on. And suddenly you're looking at having a vacant place in 30 days. The challenge here is you just weren't paying attention to the shifting rental market. Next, we've got challenge number 5. This is where your tenant leaves and you're stuck having to lower your rents. So scenario before where suddenly they found a place for $600 less. Now you realize that, well, obviously you were a little oblivious to what's going on in the market. And now you've got to try and fill your place. And suddenly you're going to have to lower your rent by $500 or $600, maybe $400 just to try and get more tenants because the market has shifted. So on top of that, in a slower market, you can be looking at several months of trying to cover your mortgage payments out of your own pocket. It is not uncommon to take a couple months when things are slower to try and fill a property, sometimes even longer if things are really bad. So you've created a situation where your tenants left, and you could have avoided it just by staying a little more on top of things here. Challenge number 5. You are vacant and you're scraping the mortgage payment together. As a landlord, I know I've been there. It's not a pleasant time. You've got a vacant property, the tenants are gone, there's no money coming in, and the money is just bleeding out. And now you've got to scrape together some money. You've got to get money from savings or some other place to cover your mortgage. And it's just a really uncomfortable time. And I'm not sure why I have the little pink lines. I've been playing with some stuff earlier. So hopefully those little pink lines on my slides aren't too distracting for you.
They're pretty. Anyway, they're pretty. I like them. Yeah.
Those are pretty.
I keep going.
Maybe they point to some important stuff later. But anyway, so worst yet, you're vacant, you're scraping by, and now you're stuck where you can't even make the payment, and you really got to scramble. This can be a horrible situation because A, you've put yourself into a situation where you're dependent on the monthly income to cover all of your costs, but B, you get desperate and you end up taking the wrong tenant too often when you're in a situation like this. And it's one of the areas where landlords have a huge, huge challenge because, is it worse to be vacant for another month, which is going to cost you $1,000, $1,200, $1,500? Or is it better to fill it with a tenant who's going to be a problem and suddenly you end up not getting paid for 2 or 3 months. You have to go through court costs and huge amounts of stress, and it turns into a $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000 cost. It happens. It happens a lot, and it's one of the areas I consult in with some of the eviction stuff. And it's a story I hear over and over where somebody got desperate and filled their place. So this is an interesting one. One of the challenges when the market's slower, and also when the market's a little bit busier, is you stand alone. So many people are just independent landlords, and they don't associate with a lot of the other landlords. And it's important, if you talk and meet some of these other landlords around, you know, you'll be in a situation where you can't fill your property and you can't understand why. You will be in a situation where you don't even like to talk to other landlords. You don't like to share some of the information you have. You don't return the reference calls. You know, I make it a huge point to always return reference calls. If some of my tenants are moving, it's important for me to get a hold of the landlord and let them know what's going on. Plus, I always like to talk to new landlords, so it's kind of an extra benefit for me. But I love to provide references for my tenants. Even if they're bad tenants, I like people to know they're bad tenants. So the other issue is you're not telling some of your problems to tenants or friends or coworkers. Now, this gets a little dangerous because some people don't like to share that they're having a problem. But if you start talking to some of the people you know about what's going on, you might find some solutions you never even realized were out there. Ultimately, you don't play well with others. And because you're not playing well with others, they tend not to play with you. So these are some of the challenges that you'll see that really, really spring up in a down market. And the market is so down, it's partially slid off your screen here. So now we're going to talk about some of the solutions that you can get to help resolve some of these issues. And this is where the important stuff comes in. So first off is communication. We talked previously about the lack of communication with your tenant. Well, you need to check in with your tenants. You need to touch base with them, find out what's going on, make sure you're on top of things. And some will find it a little intrusive, and some will find that it's nice that you're checking out and making sure things are okay. And whether this is just random calls to find out if everything's fine, or random reminders that you're coming in a month to check furnaces, you know, just check up with them, see what's going on. Make sure that they know that you care about what's going on with them. You know, make sure everything's okay. If you've had some really bad storms, just follow up with them and make sure that there's no leaks, there's no issues, they're fine. And if you make sure that you have these lines of communications open, they're much more likely to let you know if there are any real issues before you find out they're moving out. This is back to our little commodity issue, where you've created a little bit of a commodity type property, which is more of a pit stop than an actual home. Tenants like to find homes where they can stay, and if they're comfortable there, they will stay there for a very long time. Commodities, on the other hand, is where they attract the lowest bidders, where they want people pay the least amount for a commodity because there's no differentiators. Everything's the same. You don't want to get caught in that rut. You want to separate yourself from everybody else. You want to make sure that your property is perhaps a little bit better, a little bit nicer, a little bit safer, and maybe even you're just a little bit better landlord. That can make a huge difference. If the tenants feel comfortable, if they know that you're looking after them, they tend to stay a lot longer. And if you only have to fill your property every 3, 4, 5 years, it makes a huge difference between that and refilling it every 6 months. Vacancies are way down, your headaches are way down. It just makes your life so much easier. Remember, it's not just a rental, it's somebody's home. Next, especially during slower times, you need to be proactive. We talked about being reactive before. Now it's proactive time. This time, when your tenant calls you to tell you that the toilet is broken, you jump on it. You let them know right away. You got somebody, you're going to get a hold of them, and as soon as you get a hold of your plumber to get over there, you give them a call back to say, here's what's happening. In my case, I have a great plumber. He is fantastic for me whenever there's an issue. He's on top of stuff. I coordinate with him, and I get him directly in touch with the tenants so that the tenants can coordinate on their schedule to have him over there. That way they know I've jumped on stuff. That way they know they're in control and they can get things done. And the big thing is they see that I care about what's going on. And people really appreciate when you care about them. And because of that, it feels even more like a home and they want to stay. When I was much younger and renting properties, I had a great landlord at one place and I had a lousy landlord at the other place. The great place, I was there for 3 years. The lousy place, I wasn't even there for a year. It just didn't feel like he wanted me to be there. And I wasn't a problem renter. So just to warn you, it really does make a difference if you appreciate your tenants. And that's not what I got from my particular landlord. So,
hey Bill, can I share a quick funny story?
Sure, jump on in.
When I was in university, I had this total slum landlord, but I didn't realize that until I got into landlording, 10 years later. And I remember every first of the month, we would sprint to his house and knock on his door and give him our check. And we would just be like panicking because we thought he would put our stuff out on the lawn the next day. And I remember every month he'd kind of look at us kind of funny and he'd be like, well, thanks. And he'd always have kind of like mustard stained wife beater tank top on. And I can't believe what a good tenant I was. Anyway, back to you, Bill.
Yes. There's a lot of bad landlords out there, and I don't want any of you, if you're in the landlord business, to be a bad landlord. I want you to be a good landlord. So be proactive, do your regular inspections, which helps you keep lines of communication open. Talk to the tenants. Let tenants know that you will address any issues if there are any. And it goes a huge way towards making them very happy about staying there and having you for a landlord. We need to pay attention. We talked about being oblivious before. Well, as markets slow down, we need to be more attentive than ever to what's happening. We need to spend a little bit of time, maybe check in what rents are doing, maybe finding out what similar properties that you have are doing. If you've got a 3-bedroom upper suite in an area of the city, you want to check some of the ads out there, make sure that you're in line. Or if you're not in line, determine how far off you are in line from what the going rates are. If you've been renting your place out for $2,000 a month and everybody else is renting theirs out for $1,000 a month now, is a pretty good chance your tenants may be leaving you unless you've created an incredible home for somebody. So compare yourself to other properties. Make sure your rents are somewhat in line. It goes a long ways to being prepared in case you find out the tenants might be leaving. This is some of the stuff we talked about being an island before and being separate and not talking to other people. Talk to other landlords. Understand what's happening with them. Understand what's going on with some of their local market issues. Maybe there's another landlord down the street that you know, and he's having problems getting tenants. It's kind of a warning sign for you that maybe you got to be careful about your tenants so that they don't just leave on you. Ultimately, just pay attention and stay ahead of the market. If you're being proactive, you're seeing what's going on, it may involve reducing some of your rents before the tenants are gone. And if you have to reduce a rent by $200 or $300 a month, that sure beats being vacant for a month or two, especially in a slower market. So it's really just a matter of paying attention and staying on top. And part of that, as I alluded there, is rollbacks. If you've been paying attention to the market and if you've been talking to your tenants and making sure you know what's going on, and you found out maybe one of them got laid off if both of them were working, or they had to take a pay cut. If you're staying proactive, you're seeing the market changing, you're seeing what's happening with your tenants, you know they've been great tenants, they've already been with you for 3 years, now they're facing some challenges. Maybe this is a point where you have to make sure your rents are more in line with the market so you don't lose them. You don't want to force them to have to move just because they're in a tough situation, because again, you could be vacant for 2 or 3 months, and the little bit of money that you're cutting back is very little compared to what you lose if you have to be vacant for several months and then still rent it for the lower amount several months later. So if you have to roll a rent back, even if it's still a little bit higher than what the average rents are, you'll still be able to retain your tenants. Again, if the average rents are $1,000 and you're charging $14,000, maybe you only have to reduce it down to $11,000 or $11,500, maybe a little bit higher. It's a real pain to move, But if your tenants see that you're making that effort, it can go a huge way towards making sure that they last a little bit longer, they stay a little bit longer. So this is hugely important, especially right now in our local economy. When things were good, we should have been setting money aside. We should have been setting money into a war chest. The problem is we'll have vacancies. We're going to need to make repairs on our properties. And because of these things, we need war chests or reserves or some type of savings so that we have money to access to cover us off on these particular issues. So instead of taking all the money you make as cash flow, you should consider taking a portion of it and setting it aside. We tend to use basically the vacancy rate and double it as a percentage. So if the vacancy rate is 3%, we'll use 6% that we kind of set aside. If the vacancy rate is 10%, I don't want to set 20% aside, but maybe a 15 or 12, just a little bit extra. So we have more money set aside in case of a rainy day, in case we have to repair a roof, in case we have to repair a furnace. We've got money set aside instead of having to take it out of our own pockets just to get things done. If you're doing this, you can create a scenario where you are avoiding a month-to-month scenario where you are dependent on that cash flow. And some additional thoughts or ideas on this: you can use line of credits as a reserve, or you can set other scenarios up with your rental properties where maybe you have a reserve of cash set aside for them. But do something to set some money aside or have access to money so that you're not caught in that situation where, as we talked, you're desperate and you just have to drop a tenant in. Doesn't matter who they are or what they are. You're so desperate just to get somebody in the property because you can't afford to be bleeding cash every month. So finally, no man is an island. It is incredibly beneficial to you if you are getting out there and networking with other landlords and other like-minded individuals. It gives you areas of people that you can ask for help. It gives you people you can talk to get extra information. If you're stuck, it's somebody you can talk to say, hey, what do I do in a scenario like this? Do you know somebody? Do you have a repair guy? Do you have an idea? It's huge. Some of the benefits I had by reaching out with my room rental stuff is I contacted multiple different landlords and found out what they were doing. And I would often share extra applicants. So if I had all my rooms full, I would still constantly get calls because I was reasonably good at marketing. And I could spin these off to some of the other landlords. And they were just ecstatic that I was doing this all the time. It didn't hurt me. I was full. But it was huge as far as the other landlords were going because they were quite often had a room or two vacant. And ultimately, if they were full, I would get referrals. And sometimes it would let me fill a room or two, and sometimes it didn't. So always call your other landlords back. You know, if they're checking references, call them back. Make sure that you're getting in contact with them, and maybe it's just somebody you need to know. Be sure that you're talking to some of your other tenants and coworkers and friends if there are an issue. If you've got a property that's vacant, you got several properties, let your tenants know you've got a vacancy. Maybe they have a friend. Maybe they have a coworker. Maybe they have somebody else they know that is looking for a place. And just by mentioning it to somebody like that, it could open the door to getting that brand new tenant that you needed. Same with your coworker. Sometimes a coworker will say, hey, I have a buddy looking for a place. If you're talking to people about things like this, it really opens up some more doors. And the more doors that are open, the more solutions that appear. And learn to play with others. Join real estate groups. Get consultations that you have to pay for, whether it's with your lawyer, your accountant, me, Julie, somebody. Just make sure you get out there and get the information you need rather than stumbling along on your own. And at the same time, share a bunch of your information. The more information that gets shared out there, the easier it is for everybody, especially in the landlord area. So there you go. That was my 7 solutions to help you during a down market. A lot of that information will also help you in an up market, but a particular need in a slower market. So does anybody have any questions, or shall I just pass it back over to Julie?
Well, I have a comment, and it was just real quick before anybody asks any questions, if you don't mind.
Jump on in.
I love that point that you said about, knowing that the market's dropping, being proactive, going to talk to existing tenants when you probably know that they're paying $400 or $500 more than they should be. It's way less expensive to keep a client than to get a new client. And
exactly.
And like what you mentioned, people hate to move. One of the top 5 stressful things in people's lives is divorce, marriage, having a baby, somebody dying, and the 5th is moving. Of the top 5 stressful things. So yeah, like you could really help alleviate somebody's pain there. And I'm looking for a chat. I'm gonna reclaim the host still. If you don't, even if you do mind, I'm gonna reclaim the host. Uh-oh.
There we go.
What happened?
I stopped sharing. So.
Oh, okay. Awesome. You stopped sharing. I'm gonna share my screen now back again. Can you look in the chat for comments, and I'll get my stuff queued back up here.
I must have covered everything because there's not one question there. That's awesome.
That's awesome. That means, we spoke too soon.
Ray wants to know, how do you raise the rents after the market turns around? That's actually a great question. That's
a brilliant question, Ray. Thank you for asking it.
It's one of the most common questions that leads people to my website. I've got an article on The Educated Landlord that talks about raising your rents without raising the roof. And the challenge is, when you are raising your rent, you don't want to be the first one to do it, but you don't want to get left behind with the market jumping up. So if rents are going up and you do a little bit of your survey as you're trying to pay attention to everything and find that everybody in the neighborhood is $200 more or $300 more. Again, if you're one of the first ones to do it, maybe you only get to raise your rent $100. If you wait a little bit longer, maybe you'll see that the rent has gone up $300 or $400. You don't want to push your tenant into the poorhouse, but you definitely want to make them aware that the market is changing. So what you need to do is do a little bit of your homework, write a nice little professional landlord type letter, and basically state, the market has changed a lot. I've looked at a lot of the rents, and a lot of the equivalent properties in the area are renting for $300 to $400 more. And depending on where you are with that, you may want to say, because I value so much as a tenant, I need to increase my rents, and I don't want to make it too difficult for you. So rather than raising it up to $300 to match local rents, I'll only raise it $200 or $250. And now it looks like you've done them a favor because you're not raising it quite as high. You pointed out that they're a valuable tenant and you don't want to miss out on the increase in rents. And the other thing I like to point out is mention that all the other costs that you're typically looking at are also increasing, because I don't know why, but taxes on my property always seems to go up, and insurance on my property always seems to go up, and utilities on my properties always nothing seems to come down. And if you're not raising the rents, this is a chance that you might get left behind and you're stuck in a bad situation. The other point of information that should go with that is make sure you understand your local rules. Some areas only allow you to raise the rent so much. Some areas have a fixed percentage you can raise it every year, and in those areas you must raise it every year because it's not typically retroactive. And then the last scenario is something that's like here in Alberta, you can raise the rent once every 365 days with no limit. So you can raise it $1,000, you can raise it $100. And if you raise it at one point, you can't raise it again for another year. So understand those local rules just so you know where you can go with that.
Awesome. And so we have a couple of really good questions also. And I just want to make sure that we keep I want to kind of keep this under an hour, but these are great questions. I want to get them answered. So sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Not a problem.
But what I have done for everybody is I put in the chat Bill's website, and he's very accessible. So keep that in mind. I put his website in the chat. But yes, moving on to Carolyn. What a great question. Do you have any recommendations for landlording at a distance, Bill?
Carolyn, haven't we talked about this? So I actually helped Carolyn out about a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay. Smiley face. Yeah, you have.
So she had some challenges. She's got a property down in Texas and
Ooh.
having some issues getting it filled. And through some suggestions, I was able to give her some hints, and through some hard work on her part, they were able to get it filled. And I think you're a little bit of the way on the way with the landlording from a distance. The challenge is having people that can pick up things and deal with things. So whether it's a property manager or a trusted individual, I know a lot of individuals that, again, here I am in Alberta, I know a lot of individuals that live in various other areas that are investing here in Alberta because it's been a great place to buy rental property for years. And they're using property managers, or they have friends set up. And the important thing is to have systems in place, how you need things and want things done and dealt with. A lot of the property managers will try and force their systems on you. And, you know, if you like things done a certain way because you know they work, it's probably better to stick with that, although there are challenges with some of the property managers who have their own systems and don't like to change things. So if you are looking for property managers, it can be tough. It's hit and miss out there. You want to talk to other landlords and say, who do you have managing your property? How happy are you? If you're talking directly to the property managers, ask for references and talk to 3 or 4 or 5 of the other managers and see what kind of situations and how they've been. Just make sure you do your homework. We'll jump over to Amin as well. Hey, how you doing, Amin? Haven't talked to you in ages, but also somebody talking to me.
So this is a great question. A neighbor informed him that he suspects the people in his rental may be dealing in drugs because a whole bunch of cars, 8 to 10 cars, are coming by each day. What should Amin do?
Well, there's no great answer for that. A lot of the challenges we run into these days are privacy laws prevent us from sharing information like this at times with the police, especially if you know your tenant's name. You can't just randomly go into the police station and say, hey, this guy, Jack Smith, is my tenant. Can you check to make sure he's not a drug dealer? They'll kind of look at you funny because they can't really do anything, even if you suspect that they're doing stuff. Now, you can mention that you suspect that there's some drug dealing going on, and you can, you know, confront the tenant. Just be very careful about that, especially if they're drug dealers.
Mm-hmm.
Provide written notification to them that you have been informed by people in the neighborhood that there's a lot of activity going on and you suspect that there may be drug use and drug issues going on. It won't be tolerated. You'll be talking to the police just to make them aware. And if that's going to be an issue, you have no problem with the lease being broken and having them move on. You would rather have them move on than actually have drug dealers hanging out in your property, and even if the market is a little bit tougher. So hopefully that kind of covers that. And Ruby's inquiring about what's a reasonable fee for property managers. It's usually in the 8 to 12% range. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the other things, if you're setting a reserve aside, when you first set up a property, make sure that you're budgeting for at least 10% for property managers. If you're managing your own property, that 10% property management goes right in your own pocket. If you get to a point where, you know, later on you decide that you want somebody else to manage your properties, that 10% was never really yours to begin with, and it's not going to be missed quite as much because you've already allocated it for property managers.
Yeah, exactly. And I always find that kind of funny personally, though, because it's a lot. In my experience, it's harder to rent something that rents for $800 a month than it is to rent something that, well, you're going to have less problems probably with a property that rents for like $2,500 a month, like a single family home in a neighborhood, or $3,000 a month. And yeah, like sometimes you're paying $250, $300 a month for management. So sometimes I question that whole percentage thing, but I guess nobody ever asked me before they started doing that. That's just my 2 cents.
There you go.
Yeah. So
all right.
Awesome questions. What great questions. Thank you everybody for your participation. And yeah, it's fantastic. Bill, did you have something else?
That's all I've got. Julie, if you want to run away and take over here again?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much, Bill. That was fantastic. I always learn something every time I listen to you, really. You know, whether it's about landlording or about something on the internet or something that's happened in the real estate market, or even just figuring out how to put two screens on my desk. Wealth of knowledge, absolute wealth of knowledge. Very generous with this time, and I couldn't be happier being able to work with him. So we're going to dive into some information about one-on-one coaching flash sale that I'm having right now until Tuesday, and the cart closes at midnight. I want to just talk to you about some of the things that you get with this 5-day flash sale. With one-on-one coaching, you get help with analyzing deals that are in front of you. So if you find something and you're kind of, wondering whether or not it's a good deal, it's great to have another set of eyes, or two or three, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Again, looking for potential landmines and also potential opportunities. I also help people find joint venture partners, partly through networking and refining your own sales process, because guess what? If you're in real estate, you're in sales. Whether you're buying a property, selling a property, or looking for joint ventures to help you raise money so you can buy more property. And I fancy myself quite the salesperson, and I've got actually a very good process when it comes to finding joint venture partners. It's really just a system, and systems enable ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results. And I got to tell you right now, since you're here, I already know none of you are ordinary. You're already extraordinary. To take, again, an hour out of your Saturday to come and hang out with us, instead of probably maybe being on a boat or being at a cabin, or I don't know, watching a baseball game, you're here. So congratulations to you for being here. Coaching can help you with accountability. It's always harder to get things done if you don't maybe have somebody looking over your shoulder and helping you with your action steps, your actual action steps toward your goals. Of course, you're going to get assistance with property management. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute here. Help you with making sure paperwork is complete, and paperwork can be absolutely key. It can make or break a deal. It can, if you don't do your paperwork properly, it can potentially wipe out any money that you end up eventually making. So paperwork is really, really huge. For my regular one-on-one coaching pricing, my clients expect results of a $25,000 profit in a real estate deal that can take 6 months, 1 month, 3 years, 5 years, but that's the end result that we target. My upfront fee to retain my services to get started is usually $2,500, and then $5,000 once the property is acquired, okay? And I usually require a 2-deal commitment. So return on investment for just the coaching that I currently do, that I've been doing for the past 2 years, $7,500 investment for a $25,000 return. That's a 333% return on investment, which is absolutely huge. It's bonkers, actually. But for the flash sale, I'm going to talk about, I've reduced that quite a bit because I want to make this easier for, special people like yourselves who are willing to take action, willing to, take time out of your day to further your real estate investment journey. The other thing about one-on-one coaching is that I get deals. I've got 28 deals on my desk right now because I've been networking for the past 14 years. I've been sharing my story that I talked to you about at the beginning of this webinar. I've been through a lot. So a lot of people come to me who actually need solutions, and it's really fun when I'm actually able to pair up somebody who needs solutions with one of my coaching clients, whether it be a low money down, no money down, no bank qualify opportunity. Some of the clients that I work with, they've got 20, 25% down and they can qualify for financing. That's great. I just am here to help them make better choices. And my one-on-one coaching students, they get first picks of the deals that are on my desk. So just want to keep that in mind. It's not always easy to find these opportunities, but fortunately I've been out there enough that, yeah, people come to me for solutions. There's going to be additional group masterminding in addition to the one-on-one coaching that's going to happen once to twice a week, depending on how busy we are. If you've got a deal happening, if I've got a coaching client with a deal happening, I'm usually talking to them on a daily basis until the deal is done. But we're also going to have group masterminding because that's where a lot of magic can really happen, even some collaboration. So you're going to have access to all past courses that we've conducted, all past courses. We've now conducted 2 Street Smart Buyer courses. They're both they both have some similarities, but they have a lot of differences as well. The value of $900. You're going to also have free access to any future online real estate investment trainings. These include the Street Smart Seller that's going to be launching in the fall, worth $750. This is how to sell your property creatively. So whether or not you ever end up buying a property, if you end up buying a property and kind of find yourself in a situation where you need to sell, you'll learn step by step how to sell creatively in order to maximize how much money you're able to make. Street Smart Sales, the sales training that we go over in all of my online real estate investment courses really just skims the surface of some of the techniques you can use in order to be a fantastic salesperson without being all salesy. I'm going to be talking about, I'm creating a course called Street Smart Networking. Same thing. How do you be more effective when you're out there networking, talking about what you're doing? And again, you're going to have access to all the Street Smart Buyer courses that are coming up. So there's going to be live courses, there are going to be online courses, and every time we do this course, it gets a little better, better, better. And it gets, therefore, you know what? It gets more valuable. You're also going to get free attendance to any future live events that I have. If they're in a city that you're willing to travel to, you're absolutely going to have free access to the live events. And if you're already, of course, living in the city that I'm coming to, I'm probably going to be primarily going to Western Canada. But you know what? We've got folks coming from all over the world to learn some of the stuff that we've got going on up here. You're also going to have access to Bill Vico. He has agreed to come on board as a coach, as a team member for the one-on-one coaching. So now we're talking about not one-on-one coaching, we're talking about two-on-one coaching. Bill has, as you know already, has a vast amount of experience when it comes to real estate investment in a totally different area than my own experience, but he and I really, really complement each other with our own unique backgrounds. You're going to have access to Bill. So that is, I don't know how to put a price tag on that. So the next thing I want to talk about is fear. There's nothing more frustrating for me as a coach to have somebody know all the right steps, all the right things to do, how to analyze a deal, how to talk to people, how to do this, how to do that. They understand everything that they should do, but they're still in fear. And so I'm very, very fortunate to have somebody else on my team that I actually happen to be married to. His name is Geoff Hoffman. He is my husband. And he has been on some of my webinars as a renovation specialist. He has an extensive background on buildings and building supplies as well as renovations. And that's because he owned a home hardware building supply center for 30 years. In fact, he was third generation. So his grandfather started it back in 1910 when they landed in in Canada from Poland. His dad took it over, and then Geoff ended up working alongside his dad for 30 years in this hardware store. But the thing is, working in a hardware store was not his passion. And that's interesting for me because as his wife, I was married to him for like 12 years while he owned the store. And can you imagine trying to buy a Christmas gift for a guy who owns a hardware store? It was very frustrating. Not only that, it just wasn't his passion. His passion has always been helping people with topics like fear, anxiety, even physical ailments. And he's worked with people all over the world through energy work. I call him the energy guy. I don't know if that's going to take off or not, but I call him the energy guy. And everything is energy. Money's energy. Buildings are energy. Tenants that you acquire, like we're talking about today, they bring their own energy. How we feel, emotion is literally translated to energy and motion. And again, one of the most frustrating things that I encounter with people, again, who know everything, is that they're just too scared to take that next step. So my husband is here tonight to talk for about today, to talk for about 5 minutes about the work that he does and that he's going to include in what's now going to be a 3-on-1 coaching program. So go ahead, Geoff, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think if I can hear you, everybody else can hear you too. That's great. You sound great.
Good. Good. Hello, everybody. Thank you for that great intro and covering some of the stuff that kind of just paves the way for me. So I appreciate that. And just quickly want to say that it's huge for all of you that decided to be on today. I don't want you to take it lightly and just, gloss it over as no big deal. But you guys are on this call, and I just want you to know it's not by accident. What I would say, what I've come to know, and I'm really sure about this, is that things like this line up for you on your behalf. The universe, source, God, however you want to look at it, is lining up these events for you to take place in. So good job for being here. And again, don't take it lightly, because this is maybe and probably a part of that synchronicity for something you've been asking for. So more money, more freedom, just more peace, whatever it's been that you've been asking for, this could be an integral part of that. So only you'll know that. Judge that by how you feel. So with that all said, I just wanted to give, I think the best way for me to quickly explain what I do for people is to give a few examples. And the first example I'll give is my own. And I've had many versions of releases like this, but the one that stands out for me had to do directly with abundance and my feelings or my vibration around money. And what had happened is when I was 9 years old, my grandmother passed away. And her husband, my grandfather, had already passed away earlier than that. So she was kind of that head of the family, and with her passing, there was a will to deal with. And back then, with wills and people of that age, they didn't have a bunch of tightness to the wills as far as this definitely goes to this person, this definitely goes to that person. It was more like 6 siblings getting this pot of assets and property and things like that, and they had to decide how to divvy it up. So what I witnessed at 9 years old was kind of some inner fighting in that family, and all of a sudden aunts and uncles that I had looked up to so much and had always just seen them as loving to each other, all of a sudden had this different energy towards each other, and this kind of, sometimes anger or hostility or whatever was coming up for them about dividing all these assets up. And as a 9-year-old, I witnessed that occur. So I witnessed this breakup of my family, basically, is what I saw. So as you can see, what I did at 9 years old was did my best to kind of make sense of it. But what I made sense of is that money must be a part of causing this kind of thing, because they're fighting over money. They're fighting over property. They're fighting over assets. And now they don't even like each other anymore. So energetically, I created that kind of blockage within myself. So by knowing that, that's unconscious, right? But making it conscious, I was able to release that. And that, I know that was a big blockage for me to do with abundance and financial well-being in my life. So another one I'm going to tell is not necessarily directly about abundance and financial well-being, but it does have ties to it. So there was a gal that I dealt with that was very afraid of driving and being alone in her house. So she was fine if she was with someone else, but as soon as she was alone, she felt very afraid and had a lot of anxiety. And as far as driving, it didn't matter if she was with someone else. She was always anxious when she was getting to go into a car and had to travel around. So you can imagine what that would be like to have anxiety about just driving. It's such a big part of our life. So she came to me, and what we had uncovered unconsciously for her was that at 6 years old, her family at that time lived in South Africa, and there was a huge rainstorm. And during that rainstorm, the water was so high on some of the roads or some of the dips in the roads that her mom drove through water that made the water came up to the bottom of the seats in the car. The car kept running and going, but the water was that high in the car. So at that young age, she felt her mom's fear about that. Her mom was trying to act all calm and collective, of course, like any parent would do, but she did take on the fear of that moment. And she was unconsciously creating that trigger every time she got in the car and had similar experience, not even with water or rain, just didn't know why she was scared of a car. So I just wanted to give that example of there's these energetic things that have occurred in our life. We don't know why we're afraid of things, and there can be just energetic issues that occurred at some point in our life that are there. And because they're not conscious, they still can run as a little bit of a program. So so those are the two stories that I wanted to share. I know I don't have a lot of time, which is fine. I just really wanted to tell you about the you people that are on here finding Julie, however that happened, through a friend and through whatever source she came to you, could be a synchronistic event that is lining you up to something you've been desiring. And I know for me, when we first got started in real estate, and I went to that first real estate seminar that started all of this. That first seminar, I was invited by a friend, and I could just see it as a random event that occurred, but I really don't. As I look back now, I had been asking for more freedom in my life. My business was severely taking me away 80 hours a week, 60 hours a week. I didn't even have a family then, but I didn't like the long hours. I didn't like how hard the retail business was on me as a person and my energy. And I had been putting out, I want something different. And that gift that came through that first seminar was real estate. And it's allowed me now to have the freedom I do. And I don't have 60 hours or 80-hour weeks anymore, or 40 or anything that even looks like that. I have full freedom, and it really did come through the vehicle of real estate. But that wasn't my mind coming up with that. That was a gift given to me through synchronicity. So that's what I help people uncover. That's what I can help people see. And with the cleaner your energy is, or just getting rid of the blockages, the more you can attract as far as those synchronicities. So thank you. And I'm all done, Julie.
Really good. You did a great job. You ran a little long, but this is my husband. He's a chatty Charlie. And for those of you who don't know, he's like, we have 5 kids under the age of 14. And, we've gone through all this stuff, all these ups and downs, massive successes and big learning experiences as well. And, he's just a great guy. And we work as a team. And so, if you think, there's a lot of folks who don't even know that I've got 5 kids because I don't talk about it a lot for some reason, but also because my husband, Geoff, is he's just one of the best fathers I've ever seen. And he's been able to, I even call him a better mother than I am. Because he literally took all the kids, 5 kids yesterday, in the car yesterday, tugged our boat from British Columbia over to Alberta, 10 hours away, to visit Grandpa and Uncle Jim for Uncle Jim's 50th birthday. So this guy's been on an amazing journey. I'm very lucky to be married to him, and well done, honey. And I'm happy to be offering. And he said, "Hey, why don't you bring me into this more?" Because I love working with coaching clients, and I know I see infinite potential in absolutely everybody. I see infinite potential in you, Lynn, and you, Ray, and you, Ruby. I'm so glad that you're here. And you, Amin, and you, Alan. Alan, it's good to see you here. But sometimes there's this fear, and Geoff said, "Why don't you just include me in your stuff?" And I said, "Okay, if you're willing to." And yeah, he's not free. He's not cheap. This is at least a $350 value, because his services for what you're going to get in the coaching I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So that's just a real quick testimonial about Geoff. He's an amazing healer with a caring heart that can help people transform a negative emotional condition into a state of peace. I highly recommend Geoff and his new technique of transformational healing. And that's from Deb in Spokane, Washington. And buying real estate is usually a big purchase. Even if it's a $15,000 mobile home, like we talked about last night with my guest Anita, it's still a lot of money. It's still a lot of responsibility. Most of my clients are looking at $300,000, $400,000, even $500,000 properties. It's probably the biggest or biggest purchase that they'll ever make. And yes, fear could absolutely come in. So I'm really just so glad that Geoff is here on the team. So now you know you got 3 coaches, it's 3-on-1, it's not 1-on-1. Flash sale pricing for you guys for the next 5 days is $1,250 up front. That's a 50% upfront savings. I have a payment plan of 2 payments of $650. So you pay once now and you pay once a month from now. The balance of the coaching fee, once you find a deal, once you've acquired a deal, I usually charge $5,000. It's only $3,750. So that's a 25% savings right there. And if you use joint ventures, I will show you exactly how to get my entire coaching fee back so that it's nothing out of your pocket. So again, the results expected are the same. Still $25,000 after I'm paid. And let me ask you this, what would an extra $25,000 do for you in your world? Does it mean you've got a little extra money set aside? Does it mean it makes retirement a little bit easy? Let me tell you, once you know how to do this, I mean, it took me about 3 properties, and I really kind of was able to take my training wheels off and go. But you get 1 or 2 deals under your belt, I'm telling you, you can really gain some momentum. But the first things first, you've got to get started. Okay. So again, my upfront fee, $1,250, $37.50 once the deal is complete, it's purchased. And I only am requiring a 1 deal commitment. I usually require a 2 deal commitment from my clients. That means they pay me another upfront fee and we go out and find them another opportunity. That's going to be entirely up to you. If you want another deal after the first one, I'm going to honor the same pricing. So your return on investment, in this case, $5,000 up front, basically. Return of $25,000, that's a 500% return on investment. And again, it's only for a limited time because the cart is closing on Tuesday night. Just to review, you're getting all this value, $900, $750, $400, $300, access to Geoff. I said it's worth $350. It's probably worth more than $350. I don't know how to quantify. Well, access to Bill, the educated landlord, literally worth thousands of dollars. It's however much it costs for you to carry a vacant property. So again, it's a 3-on-1 coaching. It's really a 3-on-1 coaching flash sale. And my coaching business has tripled since this time last year. And I anticipate it's going to do more than that between now and a year from now. So what that's going to mean is I'm going to have less time. So I really, and the same goes for Bill and the same goes for Geoff. I encourage you to take advantage of this pricing now, because the more our time is limited, guess what? The higher our prices are going to get. And I don't mean to be salesy or pushy, but sometimes I've got to talk this way because I tell you what, real estate is the reason why I am sitting in my beautiful basement suite, office basement suite, looking out at a beautiful Lake Okanagan. I live in paradise. I live in my dream place because of real estate. And it all started with just 1 deal. All right. So the link to the link to take action is coming into the chat right now. It's also on web emails that you're getting. It's online where you're seeing me on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, however you're finding me. Thank you for being here so much. I've just typed the link to take action immediately into the chat. So I encourage everybody to take advantage of that. Now, if anybody else has any questions, I can stay on. I want to leave, I want to honor everybody's time and try to keep this, keep it tight. But if anybody has any questions, I will stay on here for a little bit. Bill, do you have anything else to add? Bill, are you still?
Everything there, Julie. So I'm just glad everybody took the time on a Saturday, on a beautiful Saturday here, to come out and listen to me talk for a few minutes. And hopefully people got some value out of everything that went on today. And hopefully what Julie talked about makes you think a little bit about what you're doing. So back to you, Julie.
Awesome. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. I appreciate your time. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. So tomorrow's webinar, same time, same location. You're going to get an email about it. We're talking about condos, what to look for, what to look out for when investing in condominiums. And Bill and I both know, and Geoff, we both know a lot about that. So we'll see you there, I hope. And yeah, click on the link. Sign up for coaching. I want you guys. All right. Take care. Thanks for everything. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.